The man
Call somebody,
is back,
tell
y'all.
somebody.
We're
He's
back.
back. Call
He's
your
back.
mama, call your daddy.
We're back and we're back.
We're back.
Tony
The whole
McGee,
crowd's back, y'all.
We're back. Tony
Hey.
McGee. Come on.
Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee.
Well, welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. Would you believe this is the 38th year ending this week? We've had a great year this year, and we're going to have a great show now. We're talking about a Super Bowl where we got the two best teams in the league. And what do? You go out and get two of the best broadcasters from ESPN to help you talk about it. I'll say Chris and Sal is all I give you a hint. We'll be back in a moment.
What's up?
When you're having fun, times go fast. We looked at this year. We didn't have fun the whole year, but at the same time, here we are now. We're at the big game. Donna, what do you think about it? We've talked about it year and year. Alex, I know you got something to say about it, but we're looking at, and you guys tell me, are we looking at the two best teams in the NFL?
Hey, Tony, you have to say that you're looking at the two best teams because that's who's in the Super Bowl. The Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, no, wait, that don't mean they're the two
Kansas
best.
City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. And someone said earlier during the season that the Philadelphia Eagles was the best team in football as far as the NFC East-wise. And they stumbled a little bit at the end, Tony. But you've got two black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl also. First time that has happened, I believe. So I think, Tony, again, that's two teams in the Super Bowl because they're there. Super Bowl.
Historical, but at the same time, everybody is looking at this game, and one thing about it, the two quarterbacks are pretty much the most important guys in the game. And Alex, both of them are hurt. Is that going to make a difference?
It could, Tony. I mean, they've each had an extra week, obviously, to get better with these nursing whatever injuries they have. This time of year, it sounds so cliche. Everybody's kind of banged up. But, yeah, they're the two most important players in the field. It's the most important position in sports. It's the biggest game in sports. So here we are. I think both quarterbacks look pretty good. Listen, Mahomes was hobbled against Cincinnati more to our eyes, our untrained eyes, my untrained eyes, than Hurts was in that game, which ended up being not much of a game. I think both. I don't think that will be a massive story. Let me put it this way. Now, all it takes is we saw in the game against San Fran, all it takes is one hit on the other quarterback to knock a quarterback out of a game, which changes the entire kind of trajectory of a game. Let's hope both guys are healthy. Let's hope both guys stay healthy. They're certainly two of the best, if not the two best in all of football. Probably 1-2 in MVP voting, one way or the other. This makes for a very tantalizing matchup.
Yeah, but
Hey, Tony,
we're
this
looking
is
at the
for you.
quarterbacks are so important. We're looking at it, and I'm sorry about that, Don. I want to throw this in. The quarterback's so important, but what you have to look at why they're important. Mahomes make plays, but at the same time, on the other end, Philadelphia needs their quarterback to run for at least 60 or 70 yards because that's part of their running game. So to me, the injury to him is more important and see how he will react as it is to the Kansas City quarterback. I look at it like that, Donna. And also, Philadelphia may have the best defense, but those two quarterbacks will be the reason for the season.
Okay, Tony, you're trying to take us back to Christmas time, reason for the season. But, Tony, those two quarterbacks with the little injuries, well, not little injuries, but the injuries they have, you can just wash that away because they won't feel no pain come Super Bowl day. But you talked one time about you've been to the Super Bowl and you know Super Bowl week, you can get caught up in all of that. But both of these teams have been to the Super Bowl before, Philadelphia and Kansas City. So when you break down this game overall, you talked about the quarterback in one part. But what about the running games for each team? Who has that edge? What about the defense? Who has that edge? Offensive line, who has that edge, Tony, overall and even coaching?
Philadelphia has the offensive line. They have the defense. At the same time, quarterbacks are equal, but at the same time, as I said, Hurts is hurt somewhat. What they do have, Kansas City, they got a quarterback that's going to make plays. They got a defensive team that's really hurting, especially in the defensive backfield. But they have equal running games. Both of them, if their running game get to going. But one factor that we haven't mentioned in that, Kansas City got a coach that's been there before. He's been through tough times, and he's a tough man. And I think he will figure out how to get it done. Philadelphia's coach, this is the first time he's not watched it on television. So what we looking at right now, experience wins. That's why when you guys won the picks, I'll let you win. I'm the oldest guy here.
Okay, here we go. Not telling the truth.
I didn't want to take advantage of you, Alex. Your first year here, we let you win, Alex, because this is your first year. But next year, don't be looking for that.
Well, thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. It's very nice of you to do that for the young rook up in here.
You see, Tony is crying about the picks because he was in third place, and you see Gary didn't even show up because he was in last place. But Alex, Tony was talking about the experienced team and all of that. But Tony, you talking about the running games are even and all that. When you look at the weapons as far as that the Eagles have, and you look at the weapons as far as Kansas City on that side, they don't have as many weapons as the Eagles do, because you can pick your poison as far as the wide receivers, the running game, and all of that. And Kelsey is your main guy on that. And remember that Kansas City had 3 receivers that went out in that last championship game. And will they be back? That's going to be key for them also.
Yeah, they'll be back, and at the same time, you're right about Philadelphia, but at the same time, Kansas City has had a problem in their defensive backfield, so that's why Philadelphia's receivers will be good. Kansas City also, they have a pretty good defensive line, but Philadelphia's offensive line may be the best in the game. But when you start looking back the quality of time, the game, and how the players as well as the coaches react to this situation, I have to give Kansas City a little. They have a quarterback I give them a little edge. Quarterback is hurt a little bit, high ankle sprain. But when we come back, I'll tell you the real reason I feel like Kansas City is going to win. Hey, guys, go get your popcorn and come back, because I got some stuff for you. We'll be back in a minute.
Hold that point, Gary. As we were just talking about, with the Washington Redskins winning, they still have a chance for the playoff. So our points for today will be what we think they should do to maintain that chance. Pass rush, got to have that. You know that. That's always big. Run the ball, eliminate all turnovers. As you guys all know, if they do not do this, their aspirations of the playoffs will disappear. We'll be back in a moment.
Well, we told you we had a special guest on the show, and I talk about this young man. He's been called a lot of things, but when you hear Sports Center, when you hear Game Day, Swami, when you hear the GOAT, when you hear the man in the man, you talk about my friend. You're talking about one Chris Berman. He and I, 38 years ago, we were going to do one show on Game Day. We did so well, they had us to do the whole season. And here we are 38 years later. Chris, welcome to the show.
Oh, Tony, we go back a long, long way. It's good to see you. Look at you. You're a wise man. Donna looks great. I know you guys have been holding the torch on this show. The fact that you have done this show for so long after you retired, and we should tell, well, you could tell them, our listeners and viewers, that we knew each other when you played for the Patriots, and I was not on ESPN yet. I was radio in Connecticut. So the late 70s we met. And then I got to ESPN, and you went to the Washington and the Redskins and Super Bowl. And so we got to rekindle a friendship, and we've been friends ever since, and TV partners. And I'm proud of you. I really am.
And I'm proud to be a part of you. Helped me. That was my first year really ever being in broadcasting. You walked me through it, and you had them to keep me. They probably wanted to fire me a couple of times, but you were the man, so I didn't have to worry about that.
Well,
I came in cocky.
I don't know if I was the man in the 80s. By then, I don't know if I was the man. I was a man, but I didn't let on that I didn't know everything either. But we wandered through the woods together, Tony.
There you go. So now we're talking about the here and now. And I've been in an argument with them for the longest. You know my co-host Donna Hockler. She's waiting here. You can see she's biting at the bit to get at me. But one thing I told them earlier in the year, and I brought you on because I know you have always been a San Francisco. You love them. Okay, let's just say the way it is. How did you feel about them this year? One thing about it, I said this year I think they had the team to go all the way, but they had to avoid the injuries, and they didn't.
Well, unfortunately, as you know, you don't need me to say it, the championship game, it was nobody's fault. Certainly not the Eagles' fault, not the Niners' fault, but it was like a boxer having one hand tied behind his back. It was like the Niners had to play a single wing, Tony, right? Like that's out of the 40s, right? We can't throw the ball, but we're going to try to run it off all these formations. Come on, right? And we're behind. So it was a shame the way it ended. I mean, Philly might have won anyway. They were ahead. But to win 12 in a row and to be on any team in the NFL, to win 12 in a row, that's a really short list, which is what they did. They won 12 in a row until the championship game. Their offensive play calling, that defense with Bosa and Warner and the linebackers and the opportunistic defensive backs, they were fun to watch. Number one defense, although Philly points out, correctly so, hey, we were number two defense, but we allowed 15 more yards over 17 games than them. So we're really 1A, The Niners were fun, 3 championship games in 4 years, but you can't, Tony, Donna, no quarterback. I mean, it was a single wing, the wishbone. I was trying to think of all the old formations from before I was announcing stuff that they had to try, right? And you're not going to win in 2023 now with that.
Hey, Chris, what were you most disappointed about, even beyond the offensive side of the ball with the quarterback situation, which you couldn't change that? But when you go over to the defensive side of the ball just before the half, and Tony and I argue about this, that they were still in the midst of this game, but the defense had some breakdowns because all season long, being the number one defense, you hadn't seen the mistakes that they made in the secondary. They had 11 penalties. It just seems like they fell apart, the defensive end of it, with all the mistakes.
Well, a lot of 5-yard penalties that a lot were really good call. I mean, I sit here and talk about, the call was good, it was bad. They were still in the game, but Tony can speak to it better than me, being on a really good defensive player. And this is not to your point, Donna, when it happened, but once it got, now it's 21-7, and now as a defense, if we don't score and force 2 or 3 turnovers, that doesn't mean you grab and play defense. To your point, you don't do that, but we're not desperate as in we're down 35-7. It was 14-7. And then if he doesn't fumble the shotgun snap and they just go to the locker room at 14-7 and they get the ball, I think, in the second half, maybe it could have been different. But now in retrospect, probably not. I think the defense if we don't like the punching, that was trying to punch the ball out, but then it was 3 or 4 times it looked ridiculous later. If the defense if we can't force 2 or 3 turnovers, we're not going to win anyway. Now we're desperate. Tony, you probably agree to that. It's a good question, Donna.
I agree. Is that my mic? I think my mic is cracking, one of the mics, so I'm going to agree with it on a loud basis saying here, look, I think that they played pretty well, even after they lost the first quarterback. If you think about it, when he went out, he was 4 for 4. They were running and controlling the game. The one touchdown that they really got that hurt them was the one that really didn't count. The ball was on the ground. Hey, they stopped them right there. They go in at 7-7. They still got a chance. Even with the second string quarterback, I saw life. But at the same time, when he was hurt, then it was too much. You can't lose 2 quarterbacks lose 2 fumbles or lose 2 turnovers or lose 2 interceptions and win a game like that. But at the same time, Chris, you tell me, do you think Philadelphia is that good? I really feel, and I know it's an if, and buts, and if we all of us had it, we'd have candy and nuts or whatever. But at the same time, do you feel that those quarterbacks had to have been well? I think Frisco would have took that game.
Well, they certainly could have, because the defense was playing Nick Bosa, and those guys were up. Armstead was playing well. Of course, Warner got hurt too, 54. So it's a tough place to win, Philly. You know that. You played there, not in that stadium. The stadium you played in, Tony, had a jail in it at the vet, right? I actually asked the Eagles GM, well, kiddingly, the night before, I'm friends with Howie Roseman, are you guys bringing the jail over from the old vet for this game or not? So that would have been a tough, they're not 31-7 better than, but the Eagles don't have to apologize. They had that drive when Hurts ran the ball 5 or 6 times to put it away to make it, 28-7?
Yeah.
They were feeling it. Look, they won 2 games, 38-7 and 31-7. I don't think they're going to care if we think, they're not that good. Well, they won 2 blowouts. They're going to go, okay, wait till the Super Bowl now. Now, that game ought to go to the wire, we would think. We didn't, San Fran didn't get their best shot, obviously, and that's not Philly's fault.
What a time! What a time for them to. I told Tony, I don't think I've ever seen in a playoff game, championship game, where you lose quarterbacks, all your quarterbacks, and then you have to go almost to your running back, which would take away from his game. But I know that you and Tony are talking about if San Francisco would have been all put together, not lose the quarterback, that they would have probably given the Eagles a better run for it, which they probably would have. But I don't think the results would have been any different. I think the Eagles, as I told Tony from day one, the Eagles was the best team in football when you look at them, even with Jalen Hurts hurt right now with that shoulder. And he didn't even have a great game. I mean, he only threw the ball 15 times. It was their running game that basically got it done. But when you look ahead to the Eagles and Kansas City in the championship game, and we were talking about this, that the defense from the Eagles, the offensive line, the weapons that they've got, Smith, A.J. Brown, and then you've got Miles Sanders, and then you've got Grantwell. You name so many names that it's like, does Kansas City have a chance?
Well, let's digress. Look back now. They only lost Cincinnati only lost that game by 3 points. And it took a big play and a penalty to get that. So I'm telling you what, it's a pretty close game. And if you take a look at it, the one thing we said going into this, we knew that the AFC had 2 pretty good offenses. We knew that the NFC had 2 pretty good defenses. But one thing that have shown itself out there now, Philadelphia is a complete team. But at the same time, I felt the same thing about the 49ers. Now you're going into this game, yes, you had a quarterback, Mahomes, that has done great things, and he's still doing it. But at the same time, they have a complement of players around him. But the defense is still the same. So when you go into this game, you have to take a look at it and say, okay, does Kansas City really have a chance in it? And I think if Mahomes and Chris, you know this better than anyone because you've seen it so much from your point of view. Lower ankle sprain, play. High ankle sprain, you could be in trouble.
Well, but you know what? I'm sure he's hurting when we're doing this. It's only a couple days after the game. They did a hell of a tape job. Rick Burkholder and the Chiefs medical staff. I've known Rick forever. Andy at Philly, etc. But of course, all the leagues have great. The fact that he ran, I know they got the hit out of bounds and the poor young man. I mean, he didn't really mean to hurt him, etc. But he ran for a first down in crunch time with 16 or 14 seconds, whatever it was, 8. Here's the thing. Is Philly's defense better on paper than Kansas City's? Yeah, but Kansas City defense is pretty good. Chris Jones, Frank Clark, those guys up front, they made the difference in that game as much as Pat did. Mahomes did, and Kelsey. So Andy Reid and Mahomes, by the end of the week going into the championship game, they probably realized on that big play sheet, right? The menu. You go to the restaurant, you got a menu, right? And you sit down, you look, oh, I want to have this. And the waiter comes out, or waitress, and says, I'm sorry, we're out of all the items above the crease on the menu. And you go, what? Well, it's snowing, a truck didn't make it, blah, blah, blah. But all the items on the bottom are pretty good. So that's 50%. But by going, like by Friday before the game, they figured out they could probably run 80%. I'm making it up. I don't know the number. And I think they probably can run 80% of their offense, again, with his ankle, against Philly. Is 80% good enough? I mean, we'll see. It's not 100%, but it's not the bottom half of the menu only. So somehow that high ankle sprain, he played pretty well. He also knew what he could do and what he couldn't do, right? Certain throws to push off the right foot, we're not doing that. They're pretty smart, Coach Reid and Mahomes. They'll understand, maybe not this play. But I think you're going to see 4 out of 5 of their playbook being run. So that gives them more than a fighter's chance with a back to the 49ers with one arm behind their back.
Hey, Chris, you hit it right, because he tweaked his ankle again in that game also and was able to play. So when you look at the breakdown of the teams and all that, we talked about the quarterback. Who wins the quarterback battle? Well, is it Mahomes? Is it Jalen Hurts? Who is the as far as the head coach? Who has the edge there? Is it Andy Reid with his experience? As far as the offensive weapons, is it Kansas City, which is missing 3 of their receivers that went down? Will they be ready to go? And as Tony said, with those high black shoes that he liked to wear when he was coming up, is it the defense of the Eagles, who was number 2? Is Kansas City's offense able to match all that? So when you look at the matchup across the board, who wins overall?
But you know what, Donna, excuse me a minute, Chris. Let me tell you this. When you get to the Super Bowl, yearly matchups, yearly games, who won last, none of that counts, because that's the one biggest game in the world at that time. And you have to look at Mahorn and this team. They have always come up for the big games. And I look for them to do that this week. Philadelphia, this is new to them. And just like Chris said earlier, you win 12 games or something in a row, then you have a little hiccup. Like they've had a couple of weeks. And he said if the quarterbacks are going to be the same, both of them are hurt. Don't forget that. And if you look at Kansas City, one thing that I'm afraid of, they've won pretty much this year from big plays and passes. They're not going to be able to do that. If they can run the ball, they got a chance. But what you look at this game right here, because I can tell you, and Chris will tell you, the last time when Washington played Oakland, they were the last team to get in the wild card, and they beat us. They ran us out of the stadium almost. So you take away all this, what happened this year, what transpired. You look at right now, Mahorn and Kansas City are big game players. Philadelphia just learning how to do it. So I come right here, Chris. It's on you right now.
They've been there before too, Tony.
When? When they had the quarterback that we got.
Philadelphia in 2017. So it's not like that they're old as far as not being there. But I think that Philadelphia has played well enough to match up with Kansas City. I know they've been there, Andy Reid and all that whole thing you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes down, let's see. You still got to pull from some of what happens during the season or just the championship. Right now, the Eagles have this swagger, and I'm not taking away from Kansas City, but I'm looking at healthy bodies being able to move forward in this game. Well,
swagger is a big, Tony knows. 38-7 and 31-7. However you did it, you won 2 games. That's in the record books, right? So. Will inexperience, Coach Sirianni's first time, Jalen's first time, although he's certainly been on big college stages. I think we in the media sometimes overrate it. and then the time we don't overrate it, it comes into play, right? Like so. Look, Andy's been in so many of these. It doesn't mean you plug it in and you win. I think that's a plus for them, but it's not. Oh, how Philly are going to overcome? See, Patrick Mahomes at 27, right? Which is he's been in 5 championship games. This is his 3rd Super Bowl. Does that make you better because of all that with Jalen? Not necessarily. But there'll be a few things maybe in the week leading up and how he prepares that he already knows, I did that once and that wasn't right for me. That's not to say that the team coming in 38-7 and 31-7 doesn't keep rolling. I'm not putting that past them. I'm not saying Nick Sirianni is going to make foolish coaching decisions. I doubt he will. Got a hell of a team. That offensive and defensive line, I mean, they have the best combined offensive and defensive line in football, and the one that you would have said otherwise might have been San Francisco. But 3 Chiefs offensive linemen Pro Bowl, along with 3 Eagles offensive linemen. Chris Jones, Frank Clark, and then we saw Dunlop come off the mothballs in the second, like a young Tony McGee. A
young Tony McGee.
A young Tony, right?
Veteran, but still got it high top. Tony McGee, because Kansas City's pretty close on the line. The bigs in this game are pretty darn good. Experience will count for something. I don't know how much.
In the NFC East, the Washington Redskins are still in the hunt for the playoffs. But the playoffs are like musical chairs, and no team wants to be left standing when the music stops. Therefore, our points for the day are: protect the passer, rush the passer, and run the ball. Without looking back, we know which team is already out of the playoffs. Bye. They're gone. We'll be back.
Even though we all had a great season, we watched things going. We in the Washington team family, we lost a big member this year. The guy that brought me here, I would not be in Washington if it had not been for him. I'm talking about the one and the only one of the greatest general managers I've known, Bobby Bedford.
Hey, Tony, Gary is not with us today, but he said that he was so thankful that Bobby Bedford had faith in a 155-pound wide receiver from James Madison. But just let me quickly say this. In his 33 seasons in the NFL, he went to the postseason 12 times, advanced to 7 Super Bowls, and winning 4 of those Super Bowls. And they know he's known as a masterman, a powerhouse, guy that could build teams, Tony. But you knew him well because he brought you here. Could you talk a little bit about Bobby Bedford, what he meant to you, and what this game has lost?
He was always a great general manager, a great person, and he was down in Miami when I got traded to New England, and he and Shula both would always talk to me and tell me how I made a difference in that team. And I remember when he traded for me for Washington, he said, "We got you here now, you come here." When I got here, another guy had on my jersey. He said, "You'll have it by Monday." And I had it by Monday, and I was there ever since. But at the same time, Gary and I was talking to him one time. He said we were 2 of the best trades. That makes you feel good, but then you look at him, look at his history, look at what he's done, what he did, and look at the person he was. And I tell you what, it makes you feel good to be affiliated with people like that. And one thing about it, we may have won a lot of things, Super Bowls and stuff, but we lost a true friend this time. And when all of you, whenever you think about great general managers, you may not never mention his name, but you better think about it because Bobby Bedford was one.
He was picked to the Hall of Fame in 2018, was with Washington Redskins in 98, 83, 87. And he brought along a whole bunch of teams, Washington, Kansas City, Atlanta, and all that. What do you remember about Bobby Bedford?
I was a much younger person then, as we all were, and I was such a hyper fan then. And he brought greatness. And his first player personnel move wasn't a player. It was Joe Gibbs. So he had to convince Jack Ken Cook about this guy who had no head coaching experience, ran an offense out in San Diego, starts 0-5, as everybody knows. And, nowadays, who knows what would have happened with Twitter and everything. Coaches that start 0-5, sometimes they don't get a sixth game. But Bobby, before he did what he did with Tony and Gary and Jake, and you name all these incredible players that all of us just love with everything we got, before all that could really happen, he had to find the right coach. And he found Joe Gibbs, and the rest is history.
Hey, Tony,
right.
last word for you. He had a knack for building teams around players that were overlooked. What made him so great in Washington? Because he built that team with unknown players.
He didn't look for players. He looked for people. He looked for good people. He looked for people that got their game done. And the one thing about it is he did that with every player that he brought in here, and that's what was important. As you can see, we dimmed the lights a little bit. I know I jumped in a few minutes ago saying we'll be right back. But we want you to think about Bobby Bedford, because we will be thinking about him. Even though it's Super Bowl week, we, as all the Washington players, and we were the Washington Redskins, know if it were not for him, we wouldn't be there. We'll be right back.
Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus Speakers Bureau offers you various opportunities to connect with former and current players along with Tony and the crew. For more information, go to redmagplus.com Speakers Bureau.
This is the end of our 38th year with a good Super Bowl coming up. What did we do? We went out and got the best reporters that we possibly can. Now, Donna and I didn't know we were to the same pool because we know where excellent reporters are. Donna, I brought in Chris Berman. Who did you bring in?
Hey, Tony, I brought in the individual Sal, who covers for ESPN, and he covers for the Eagles as far as all season long. And he's going to be reporting on the team that's going in the Super Bowl. I'm just messing. But Sal, thank you for the opportunity to come on the show with us to talk about the Eagles getting to the Super Bowl yet again.
Totally my pleasure to be on your show, Don. It's a pleasure to be with you, Tony. I really admired you over the years, and I'll tell you what, the town has a lot of snap, crackle, pop right now. I've covered the team for 30 years, and I've never seen this level of engagement or excitement, even when they won Super Bowl 52. I think the Eagle fan demographically is younger. I think it's across the board, in all neighborhoods, all communities, and Jalen Hurts, I think, is primarily responsible for that as the CEO of the team on and off the field. He's a remarkable young man, and he shows real leadership effortlessly in a way that I haven't seen since I served in the military, and I was a naval officer at age 22. And so I saw young officers in the military who are just like Jalen, grind it out, advance one day at a time, keep your head on a swivel, but keep an even keel. So I marvel at his ability.
Hey,
Sal,
I'll let Tony jump in right now.
Sal, and you look at this, and it's what I want to just ask you the quick question. With him being injured, do you think that that's going to play a part in the Super Bowl? I know that he's doing well, don't get me wrong, but he's injured as well as the other quarterback. Do you look at this Eagles team, but you kind of watched them the whole year? Are they really a complete team, or is Jalen the big part of this team that they can't afford to lose?
I don't think his injury will play a major part. Now, he hasn't really been called upon, Tony, to carry the team from the pocket as a pocket passer because their running game is just so multiple, so versatile, so powerful. And so, they run the ball, primarily running team. You saw that against Giants, saw that against the Niners, and their run coordinator and offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland, had a lot to do with that. And they've got two guys, in my view, who are headed to Canton, Ohio. That is Lane Johnson, the right tackle, and Jason Kelsey, the center. So when you have 2 out of your 5 offensive linemen who are Pro Football Hall of Fame worthy, Tony, you know that, man. You got an
He
offensive
doesn't
line.
know that, Sal.
She don't give him the credit for it, but at the same time, she's the person that felt like you guys were the best at the beginning. So I have to give her that props. But I also looked at that San Francisco team, and I want your thoughts on that. Had they not lost their quarterback, it looked like that could have been a very close game.
Closer, for sure. But Brock Purdy's not playing linebacker, and the Eagles had 4 rushing touchdowns.
Say
Do
that
that.
again, Sal, for him, because like you said, it would have been closer, but the results would have been the same. But Sal, I told Tony that when you look at the Super Bowl and you look at this Eagles team, they are clicking on all cylinders. On the offensive side of the ball, they've got top receivers as far as A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and then the running game as far as with Miles Sanders, and not even talking about James Granville. So when you talk about all the weapons, along with Jalen Hurts and all that, their offensive line, how can Kansas City's defense slow them? Because I told Tony they got a large task on their hands as far as trying to slow that Eagles offense down.
Well, Donna, I think when you look at the Eagles running game, I said it's multiple for a reason. They have a lot of run pass options where, Jalen Hurts is just reading and reacting. And then they have a lot of zone read runs where it's set up as a one cut offense for the running back. So it is extremely multiple. And then if he keeps the ball, he's very good right now, I think, at protecting his body, and he has to be, as Tony mentioned. That right shoulder, he's got an AC joint tear. It's not fully healed, clearly. It doesn't affect you when you throw the football, but you can re-aggravate it and re-injure it very quickly, and it's very painful.
Well, as
Yeah, so
far
they
as him
could.
running the ball too, like you said, it looked like even in that game against the 49ers, he didn't look like the same Jalen Hurts because he wasn't able to do the things that he normally do as far as run the
He
ball.
didn't have to.
Yeah, well, that's what. Could you tell Tony that he didn't not have to because they had so many other weapons and everything. But
Going back to Tony's point, Donna, about the quarterback, it's for real. The air went out of the sideline, and
Yes.
if you can't compete, it's demoralizing. Anybody who's played team sports knows that if you can't compete because you're missing an important piece, it's demoralizing. It's human nature. I don't care how tough you are. It's difficult to overcome that. And, you need to have real leaders who can rally a team, coaching staff, players, whatever, to overcome such a really difficult circumstance. So, yeah, I agree with Tony that it did have that kind of impact, but I was being a little facetious. That, Brock Purdy's not playing linebacker, but nevertheless, you can tell body language, not good.
Do you have any fear of the team on the other side of the ball? And everyone's saying Kansas City. Also, their quarterback is hurt. And going into this game, we all realized that they had powerful offenses, but both defenses, with Philadelphia having a great defense and one with Kansas City having a so-so defense. Do you have any fear that they may win this game? Can Mahorn pull it out? Or do you think this is going to be one of those games whereas Philadelphia would dominate as they have during the course of the year?
Well, Philadelphia is the first team since the Baltimore Ravens of 2000 to hold 2 successive opponents for 7 points or less. And the Ravens had an historically great defense of 2000. That was the Ray Lewis defense that dominated the New York Giants in the Super Bowl. So, having said that, I think there's 2 aspects of this team, Tony, that is truly, truly dominant. 1, the running game. 2, pass rush. The pass rush is real. It's real. It's speed to power. It's multiple. They got a lot of bodies that they throw at you, wave after wave after wave. I tell you, this is a for real pass rush. Hassan Reddick, again, speed to power, has length and strength and smarts, super smart guy.
Hey, Sal, you got the pulse on this Eagles team. What is the feel that you're feeling right now as far as when you talk to the players, coaches, and everything, with them getting ready to go to the Super Bowl again? I think they hadn't been there since 2017. What's the pulse on this team right now?
I'm here at the Eagles right now, Donna. In fact, when I get off your show, I'm going to get on the phone with a couple of the coaches here, and we're gonna, you know, get a few more insights into what's going on with the team so that I can report live tomorrow. And I had a sit down today with Nick Sirianni. So I think Nick Sirianni is smart enough that he is relying on past experience of coaches that he knows, Frank Reich and others, to try to get a feel. It's very difficult, I think, number one, to have the same messaging all the way throughout for 2 weeks and get a team prepared. You really have to have a good plan in place. So I think he's getting that. It's his first show. It's Andy Reid's. This is multiple times that he's been in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes, this is his third. Jalen Hurts, it's his first. But you know the old saying, hey, experience is not required when you have talent.
Thank you. And you know the thing about it is you mentioned the pass rush, but let's talk about the pass catchers. I haven't seen no one really cover your pass catchers this whole year, not just in the playoff. They are very good. They come up and they make some difficult catches and they make big catches. So I'm looking at them as being a big part of this. As you know, Kansas City, as I said, on defense, they've had problems in the defensive backfield, and they haven't always had the pass rush. So it looks as if whichever team can run the ball the best, this may be a game for them. Now, we know your receivers can get off, but Kansas City has one of those take a chance defenses where they'll blitz you, they'll do everything to try to stop you because they may not have the talent to stop you up top. So as you look at this game, can your receivers take over the game as they have in the past? And I'll say yours. I mean Philadelphia.
I like how he said your receiver, Sal.
Right. I'm not a fan of the team. I grew up in New York, but I've covered the team forever. I try to remain as objective as possible. You know, the guy who cuts my hair and cuts my lawn, they're all Eagles fans. So, you know, I try to walk that fine line, Donna and Tony. But you know, I look at this Kansas City team. What are the strengths? Well, the courage and moxie and superior playmaking ability of their quarterback. I mean, he played a game that for the ages on a bad ankle. 2, Chris Jones is, you know, a runaway train, and they better block Chris Jones in this game because he will wreck it if they don't. I think he's the best pass rusher overall in the AFC. I think Reddick is the best in the NFC. 2 great pass rushers could both wreck this game. And then you sneaky speed that Kansas City has offensively. Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, Juju Smith-Schuster. Go down the list. They have some sneaky speed. It's interesting to me that they lost Tyreek Hill, right?
Yeah.
And yet they lost Tyreek Hill, but they didn't really miss a beat at all.
What plays into when you look at the coaching? Does experience play into part with this? Being Andy Reid, like you said before, has been there, and on the Philadelphia side, maybe not so much experience as far as being in the Super Bowl coach-wise. Well, how much will that play into things also?
Well, I think, you know, you have coaches up and down the line that have experience with Coach Reid, Coach Spagnuolo, Eric Bieniemy. Let's not forget about Eric Bieniemy, who does an absolutely great job with the Chiefs, but in my view, should have been a head coach a long, long time ago.
Definitely.
I don't know why. You know, the last time they were in the Super Bowl, that should have been the indicator right there when they beat the 49ers. To me, he should have gotten a job right away, but hasn't. Has been lost in the sauce, I believe. I don't know why, but you know. And so you got Bieniemy, you got Spagnuolo, you got Reid, you got guys who are experienced in coaching in big games, and you got Shane Steichen. Nick Sirianni's never even been to a Super Bowl, not as a fan, not as a coach, not as a player. You know, that experience, Donna, as you know, when you get out there and you got to deal with the media every single day and the inane questions over and over again. And it's a lot of demand on your time. You can get wide-eyed about it and get caught up in it for sure. I've seen that happen to some players, but, and here comes the big but, Jalen Hurts is not going to let that happen. He's not. He's a special, and I've been around a lot of young people in my life as a Navy officer, as a college professor. I have 3 daughters and 4 granddaughters. I got 3 son-in-laws. I've been around a lot of young people in my life, and Jalen Hurts is the creme de la creme.
I like that.
Ooh, I like that.
Well, I'm gonna let Tony have the last word because I know that
I just want to ask you one
you gotta
thing.
go and do some things, but Tony's gonna have the last word with you, Sal, because I know you've got a lot to do to get prepared for this Super Bowl moving forward. So, Tony, you got the last word before we let Sal go.
Sal, if you had to think about it right now, what would you think the score would be in this game?
I think the Eagles will score 30 points. The question is, yes,
you really you think they'll score? But what do you think Kansas
well,
City
they scored
will do?
38 against the Giants and 31 against the best defense in the NFL. So I think they'll go score 30 points. I think the game comes down to the Eagles defense handling the playmaking ability of Patrick Mahomes on 3rd and 4th down. He's a magician. He's an escape artist. Even with a bad ankle, Tony.
Yes.
He's been sacked only 3 times in the postseason. 3. And he can't hardly move unless that's a big act. I don't know. But so can the Eagles handle the playmaking ability of Patrick Mahomes down the stretch? I got the Eagles winning 30-27 in this football game, but the ball will be in Patrick Mahomes' hands with an opportunity to win the game.
Ooh, that's a good Super Bowl. That's a good Super Bowl. I like that.
That's what we're looking for. We got to bring you back on and Sal. Maybe after the Super Bowl and everything, you can come on our podcast. I want to see which of is right and wrong, but I agree with everything you're saying. But I didn't think
Tony,
you would think they would get.
What do you got, Tony, for a score?
I got a score. I would look more at maybe a 24-18, 17-18 score. I think it's going to be a 7-point game.
No. If the Eagles don't score 30 points, I'm coming to your house and cooking you dinner. Come on now.
Okay,
yeah,
now
Tony, and who are you picking? Tony, who are you picking, though?
I want to pick Kansas City. Give me a chance. Now, let me say what. You said they scored 30 points. Okay, they scored 30 points on the Giants, who didn't deserve to be in there anyway. They lucked up and got in there. And then they throw 30 points on the team that didn't have a quarterback. So can we still do that? Will they have an offense that maybe can hold on to the ball and not giving them opportunity? This is going to be different. And one thing you kept saying, Sal, is so important. I've been in 2 Super Bowls. It matters if you've been there before.
Yes, I agree with that.
That's all I'm going to tell you.
I do. It does.
It matters.
It does matter. Yeah.
And
but there's been a lot of teams that have won their first Super Bowl. Brady won his first one. I mean, there's a lot of teams that do that. I mean, look at what the Washington football team, Commanders, whatever you want to call them, they did
exactly.
with three different quarterbacks, one head coach. I mean, it's been done. Troy Aikman won his first. So Montana won his first. It can be that Terry Bradshaw won his first. Bart Starr won his first. I'll go way back for you. Bart Starr won his first. So it can be done. Nick Foles won his first. And by the way, Nick Foles has the same number of Super Bowl titles as Aaron Rodgers. I'm just putting that out there.
Hey, Sal, you know what? I'm going with the Eagles also because I think the Eagles are going to score 30-some points and Kansas City about 24. And like you said, you never can count out Patrick Mahomes and that offense.
Yes.
But all I want is a good Super Bowl.
Right. It'll be a nail biter.
Holding you to that 30.
The Eagles will have the lead in the end with Patrick Mahomes with the ball in his hands. No question about it.
If they don't score 30, Donna will be sending the plane to pick you up and come and cook for us. But I think they'll score 30. But as you said, the one thing that really surprised me, when you said 30-27, I don't know if it'll be that high of a game. I think it's going to be a game, as you said, Patrick Mahomes will have a chance to win it. It'll come down to a crucial play, and whoever makes that crucial play will win. Well, Sal, I thank you for being on, and I tell you what, a wealth of knowledge, and hey, enjoy the game.
Thanks,
Oh,
Sal.
I'm glad that you invited me on. It's always great to see you, Donna. Tony, you take care of yourself, and I'll be coming on after the Super Bowl. We'll talk about it.
All
I
right.
appreciate you. Take care. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press. The President will have opening remarks and then take questions from the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. Mr. President.
Good afternoon. Glad that you came today. I will entertain your questions.
Mr. President, Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. President, Laura from Battle Creek Press, was it a mistake for you to say that the Cowboys wear dresses?
Yes, Laura, it was a big mistake. I thought they wore dresses, but I found out they wear skirts and high heel cleats.
Mr. President. Mr. President, Bob from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Is it true that Troy Aikman secretly provided counterintelligence for the Redskins?
Didn't Troy open the door for the Trojan horse? Next question, please.
Mr. President, Kerry from New York 1. Didn't the Cowboys redeploy their forces in the second half?
Second half, they quit in the warm-ups. Last question, please.
Yes, Bert from the Bermuda Triangle. Can you tell me how the Redskins will do against the New York Giants?
Well, I'd like to tell you, Bert, as well as all of you Giants fans, the Redskins are going to kick your
One more thing.
I'm going to open this segment saying Kansas City will win the Super Bowl. All of you who do not believe it, meet me here again and we'll talk about it. Donna, I know you're not agreeing with me, but I tell you what, they got a coach in there.
I'm picking the Eagles.
Oh, look at you, a fair weather. Why you think the Eagles?
Props with her. Tony, I'm kind of with you. The Eagles have been the best team all year. They've got a better all-around game. I think they have a better running game. I think they have a better defense. Everything says they should win. And because everything says they should win, I'm picking the Chiefs. I just think Mahomes is, if he's healthy, we talked about that earlier in the show, Hurts is great. 29, 30 other teams would love to have him. Mahomes is, I think he might do a little something even extra special. I think somehow the Chiefs with Reed, they've been there before. I think they pull this off.
I think they've been in. When you talk about experience, we want to thank you guys because this is 38 years of experience we've had with you. You've seen some of our flashbacks, old shows. Look at I didn't have this beard all the time. Donna's been with us a long time, and we got Alex this year. But we want to thank you guys because without you guys, it wouldn't be a celebration. We wouldn't still be here. What we want you to do is come back and watch us again. Donna, we got a podcast. Tell them when it is going to be on.
Yeah, Tony, this show may end, but the podcast is a spinoff of the Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. So be tuned in to our YouTube channel. We'll let you on because you're already on already. But Tony, we'd like to thank Ricky Irvins also for working us out this season. And he'll be back next year to work us out a little bit. And maybe Tony and Alex can be a part of these workouts.
Well, we already were in shape, and if any of you wondering where Gary was, he's down in the beach in Arizona. He's already there because that's where they do with the superstars. Speaking of superstars, we try to be one. We try to be a super show, but we know we can't be it without you. Thank you guys again for 38 years. And as we always say, never say goodbye. Say in a minute.